Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Welcome everyone to Inspiring Women, the inspiring women of women's health, wealth, and happiness. Today with us is April, Rachel, and Amy. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Oh,
Let's find out more about our panel.
Hi, I'm April Roberts, and I am in Berea, Ohio, just west of Cleveland, very close to the Cleveland Browns practice. Everybody asks me that when I say I'm in Berea. So, yes, I'm right by the practice facility. I am a professional disability advocate. I represent folks that are filing for Social Security disability, veterans benefits. We guide people in their Medicare journey as well. And that has evolved into offering other auxiliary benefits. We are also putting together an educational mechanism where we're going to be educating the community. There's lots of folks out there that, very rightfully so, are scared of representing or hiring representatives for a good reason. So we're going to be educating folks that want to represent themselves and giving them the tips and the tools that they need to do that with a free and a paid video series, which we're going to be putting out over the next few months. And I'm also a musician and happy to announce that I'm going to be getting back into recording this year and releasing some music. So looking forward to doing that again. I got all my gear set up just on the other side of the wall, and yay, that's me.
hi, my name is Rachel Christie. I'm the owner of Street Smart Beauty. So my vocation is I'm an esthetician. I've done lots of stuff before this, but yeah, so I wish I played a musical instrument. I don't. I think for me and what I do, I'm really kind of just I like to say like I'm in the business of confidence. Put it this way, I've been a licensed esthetician since 2010. I've been in the wellness industry since, 2000s, personal trainer, spin instructor. Like I've done a lot of different things, yoga instructor in the wellness industry. And and it's just been interesting to be on that ride and just see how wellness has evolved and how we view wellness and how we view, I know self-care gets thrown a lot around a lot, like self-care Sunday, but the act of caring for ourselves and what that means and how and what that looks like, the commercialized part of it, but then the actual like the doing of it in our daily lives. And so it's been interesting to be part of that. And also because I'm around a lot of women, I get to see what that looks like in real life and in real time. And I get to see how it's changed as, we've all gotten older because my clientele, they just kind of age with me, right? It's like I found my group and we just kind of all go together. I'm not really hanging around with 18-year-olds or anything like that. Not that they're not welcome, but it's just, birds of a feather kind of thing. So that's me.
My name is Amy Newts and I own New Fire Collective. I am in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Um, so for me, I've been in business for 20 years and I've got to see trends come and go in business. One of my most favorite trend is authenticity is actually being applied. So we don't want to be lied to, even little lies. So showing up who you are, what do you have to offer the world? And I do that through clarity, courage, and confidence. The clarity to be you, like, and to have an authentic offering. And doesn't matter what other people tell you should do. This is your offering. And then I do it through courage, where the little tiny baby steps can make giant leaps forward. We don't have to be like dive off the deep end and try to swim. There's small little action steps that we can do every day. And then the confidence to be you, no matter who you are in the room. Don't adapt. That was my favorite thing when I first started business. I adapted. I tried to look like a big corporation when it was just me and my husband. And I start to challenge people when they are talking about we do this. And I'm like, aren't you an I? They're like, yeah, but we're supposed to look bigger. I'm like, there's your first tiny lie to your audience. So be authentic, own who you are, and show up differently, because that's what attracts people today.
This is a wonderful group. I'm so excited to hear the questions and answers. April, do you have a question that you would like to start with?
Yes, I'm going to start with a couple of things. I'm going to start first with Rachel. Rachel, I think that, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. There is, I think with our age group, a big thing with work-life balance. A lot of us are in that sandwich generation. We're taking care of family, we're taking care of parents. Even if we don't have children, we're participating in the lives of our nieces and nephews or a best friend's child. We're definitely participating in the care of our parents. Where many of us are self-employed, like us here, everybody is self-employed. And we all just discussed little health things that come up. Energy is the biggest issue for me. And even with my clients, of course, most of them have health issues. Of course, they're filing for disability. Even their caregivers. Energy is a big thing, even for people that eat right, take care of themselves. They don't have any major health issues. Energy. What can people in our age group do just to boost that energy, without, getting into the piles of supplements that we're never going to stick to, and that kind of thing? Is it an exercise thing? Is it an attitude thing? Is it a routine thing? Combination thereof?
I think the short answer is, girl, I don't have an answer for you. I don't. I'm in this world just like everybody else, trying to figure it out. Like that's the first thing that comes out. I will say this: one of the things that I do know that can help is, and I know it sometimes feels very heavy, but I think at our age, and because we're in business for ourselves, we need to learn to get back to being disciplined and having structure in our days and how we go out, into the world and what we do. Sorry, that right there. So I'm pointing to my dog for people who are just listening. I'm being hailed for something, but in any case, but for me, it comes down to, being disciplined enough to care for myself. I mean, it's not rocket science. We know what we need to do to make ourselves feel good. We know we need to eat a certain way, depending on what our bodies want and like, right? We know that we need decent sleep. We know that we need to somehow manage our stress, right? Whatever that looks like. But we need to be disciplined enough to do it. And it was a conversation I had with actually one of my friends, and I see her still as a mentor. But we were talking about this discipline thing, and she brought it up, and I'm like, I hate that word, right? I hate that word. It feels heavy. It feels like a rock that I'm dragging with me.
Agreed.
And it probably has to do with, the way I grew up and trying to overachieve, or you have to be perfect, and everything has to be just right. I think but it gets lost in that. Some of that gets a little twisted, right? Because we need to take care of ourselves, and yet we make choices every day not to. It's like, why are you up at 11 o'clock eating popcorn? You going to go run that marathon in 30 minutes? Like, what are you doing?
Absolutely.
It's that kind of thing. And I can go on and on, but I think, it has to do really with just choosing ourselves. And I don't know that we know how to do that. And earlier when you were just talking about, like, before we started recording, we're talking about the body kind of giving out as we're coming into ourselves. And in some ways, I think therein lies the little bit of hindrance, right? Because I am who I am. I don't apologize to anybody about anything that I do, but I'm also very unapologetic to myself. When Rachel here, says, I'm going to eat ice cream at 2 a.m. or whatever it is, I basically flick off the Rachel here. So for those of you listening, like, the mind versus the heart and the soul and what we need. And there's always going to be, and I think, this like I'm entitled or I'm tired or I just don't feel like it. I don't know. I could go on, but that's kind of my feedback. I mean, those are my thoughts on it.
Basically just being okay with
I think
not second guessing, just kind of being okay with these are the things that I'm going to do, and maybe just not let the negative thoughts of I should be doing this or I should have done it that way, not letting those things kind of cloud. Is that what you're trying to
Well,
convey?
I mean, you can should on yourself all day long. I think, though, if we want to feel better, you need to decide that that's important. And to the point earlier about the energy, there's that kind of meme going around. It's Gwyneth Paltrow, and she's doing her evening routine, and she kind of ends it with like well, that's all, folks. Time for bed, and the little line is POV. It's 2 p.m. in the afternoon, or in perimenopause, right? And we're all tired. I think that there is, on some level, we have to give each other grace. But at the other side of that, it's like, well, how are we really caring for ourselves during this? I remember I looked at my husband, I don't know, last week, and I'm like, take care of me. Like, I had to say it. Not that he would, like, he did it. Like, I'm like, make me dinner, make me food, clean this house. Like, I cannot do for myself anymore. And so now I just start asking people, like, do this for me. Because I'm tired. I can't do it. Yeah. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm like you guys. I'm stuck in the swirl. I don't know what's right. I don't know what's wrong. I
I
just
think
know
it's a
it
perfect
is.
answer, though. I like that answer because it made me feel better about like because I'm like I keep trying to put myself into this pigeonhole box, and you're just kind of like you got to be what you're saying to me in so many words is being at peace with the plan that you choose, give yourself grace, and then when it's time to discipline, be okay with discipline. And sometimes you're going to fall between the two, and that's life, and be okay with that. And I need to tell myself that all the time, and hearing you say it means I'm not the only person in that boat, and hearing it come from you and your professional background, your expertise just helps me be more peace with that. So I like your answer. I like your answer a lot because I was looking for, you got to do this. And I'm going to sit there in my head going, I don't do that. I don't do that. I don't do that. And basically you
Yeah.
sound a lot like me. And I like that. That makes me feel better.
Honestly, it's the same thing I hear in business too. It's not just in personal. Like I train women to say no.
Oh
Like
God. Big
no
one.
to things that doesn't serve them. As we wear down and we get more tired, the capacity to say no is also depleted. And so we have to be very like checking in with ourselves when we're really, really tired to take a pause and maybe say, I can't make this decision today. I've been doing this a lot. Can't make the decision today. I'm way too tired. I have to think about it tomorrow. And it's not like avoiding it. It's really about what's best for me and what's my energy. Like you said in the beginning, checking in with my energy to make sure I'm making decisions correctly that I don't regret. Because that's how I live my life, is try to do as little amount of regret as possible. I will own my mistakes because I did my mistakes, right? But I try really hard to make informed decisions, and it's not always possible the day of. But I love that, Rachel. I think that's how we think. Like, we're tired. And I love that I'm so glad you said that about your husband, telling him, like, I need you to take care of me, because that's been my last week. I'm like, can you just pamper me today? Like, I really need this.
Yeah.
I had a really bad experience. I need help today.
Yeah.
And it's been going a lot better by me expressing myself very clearly to my spouse.
Yeah, and we had that discussion on Amy's interview about that, of asking. Sometimes we just have to straight up ask, because we've taken on years of, yes, okay, I'll do it, and is dragging ourselves to get whatever it is done for whomever we need to get it done. But we've hit that point where, guess what? It's time for me to put my feet up.
And it goes back to your, Amy talking about, the authenticity piece. And typically it's this like exterior thing. Like we want people to be authentic and transparent with us. But I think sometimes we need to learn to turn that inside. I think we need to be authentic and transparent to ourselves,
Yes.
right? And just because there's a part of you, and you know, and men go through, it's men and women, but I just know my experience as a woman, but this whole idea of suit up and show up, you know, step up to the plate and bring your own bat, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter what's going on in your life. You have to show up with a smile and do the show and do all this other stuff. And we suppress that other side, that's like, I mean, and sometimes it can get really loud, right? Sometimes it's like, you know, kind of like a spidey senses thing, like something's off or I don't not feeling comfortable with this. But then sometimes there's that part of us that's very, very loud. And there's
Yes.
this huge objection to like whatever is going on. And we shove it aside. And we don't give that part of us a place. We don't allow that integration of self to come together so we can make a decision that's okay for us. And it was weird because I had to go through that like recently and it worked out. Like it worked out perfectly. But up until like the day of, I was going to still suit up, show up, do the thing. And then, and it had to do with like my business and a client who was coming in. And there was a service they wanted to come in for. And I was like, this isn't going to work the way they want it. I don't think this is really what they really want in their heart of hearts. I think they're going through the motion. And I was getting like irritated, and there was part of me that was like very loud. And they had scheduled a service. I did not set up for that service. I threw caution to the wind, and I just like listened to that part of myself. And you know what? She didn't want that service.
Mhm.
When it was all by the time it was all said and done, she would have been upset had she gotten the service that she actually came in to get, because it wasn't even in alignment with what she really wanted for herself. So sometimes, and I'm not saying like I'm a big, I will put this way. I'm very comfortable kicking over the china cabinet and just letting it go everywhere. Like I don't, I don't care. That's kind of a character defect on my side, but sometimes you're really listening. I've never known it to like not work out.
Well, Rachel, I think what you said was really key is the clarity is actually with ourselves than anywhere else. And the more you understand it, people are like, oh, the more I'll understand it, the less it'll happen. I'm like, no, no, no. The more it'll keep happening. Like things will happen, but it allows you a different response. And for the first time I actually had it happen this weekend or 2 weekends ago, a client had this horrible experience. He emailed me, goes, Amy, we are in trouble. And I like it triggered all of this. And then my first response was, okay, I grew up on a dairy farm. Got to get, it was a Saturday. I'm like, okay, all day tomorrow on Sunday, I'm going to work all day long. I'm going to figure this out, even though there's nothing I could absolutely do. Like there was really nothing that we had done the motions already. And I was literally going to go into battle of all in, work hard. And I was like, wait a minute. This is my insecurity triggering. And I had to sit with it. And I probably sat on the couch for an hour and just sat there and went, wait, if I do this, this will happen. And then I'm like, nope, this is not right. And I'm going to let this anxiety even out of my body. And I let it go. And all weekend, I enjoyed my weekend. And just recently, literally today, like the client finally got in and I'm like, oh my God, he's going to be angry. He's going to be angry. He's like, okay, so let's just talk and see what our game plan is. I'm like, okay, that was all in my head. The
Yeah.
anger, the frustration, all of that was there. But what I would have done in the past is I would have spiraled down so far that I would have been like, how did this even start?
Yeah.
But I didn't let it start. That's the clarity of knowing when you're triggered, what can you do differently? And it takes discipline and knowing who you are and that following your instinct. So I love that.
Brene Brown says something interesting about that. So I think it's all rooted in this desire to like overachieve or be perfect, that perfectionist kind of thing. I don't know how she said it, but long story short, it's rooted in shame.
Mhm.
When you say I'm a perfectionist, you
150%.
say that you're basically telling everybody you come from a place of shame. And once, and not that I have said that in a very long time. I know in my 20s, like I'm a perfectionist, right? Like that, right? And
That was
like
good.
very like self-righteous. You don't stink.
Yeah.
So sorry. I know we're gonna bleep it out. But that, right? Like always it's gotta be just so. And I grew up in a household that was like that. It just has to be just so. When I heard her say that that's actually rooted in shame, I made a mental note. I have never once said anything about being perfect ever, ever again ever again because I will never show up from a place of shame, no matter what space I'm showing up to.
You don't owe that to anybody. And I think that's something that women really need to understand is you don't owe that to anybody. You don't owe that apology. We walk into the room apologizing like we already owe that apology for what? And that has been something big for me in a personal, me as a musician, performer person, blah, 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 whatever. But when it comes to me really on an intimate or, a one-on-one or serious, down to earth level, I always went in with that inferior, like, okay, I'm stepping up into something that I, have to earn yet. Instead of, I have something to offer here. I'm bringing a value into this room and I don't need to walk in there like I'm all that in a bag of chips. But there are times where, yes, I have earned that, especially in a room full of certain men that I've dealt with in my life. But at the end of the day, I think, we go in with that apology, already like built in. It's almost like it's hardwired. And it's taken me a lifetime to unwire that and have that confidence in myself. I think at the end of the day, it has everything to do with why I'm good at why I'm good at what I do, and why I can convince a government agency which is not easy to do. This person meets your rules and you need to give them the money that they paid into the system. I mean, that's not an easy prospect, and it's not easy to teach a team of people that are lay people on how to, to do that process. And I had to sit back one day and go, I did this. I don't know anybody in this space, and when I talk about the space, I mean the disability advocacy space. I don't know anybody an apology. I'm bringing something to the table to share. I don't think anybody owes me a cookie. I'm not going to have that kind of an attitude, but I'm bringing something to share and I have something of value. And I think that a lot of women come from that hardwired, here I am and I'm sorry, but okay,
Is this okay? I love that
right. Is
one.
this okay? Right. And it's like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not as only okay, but you're going to like it.
Yeah.
And it's hard for us to do that. I think I really
It,
do. I think it's hard for us to do that.
and it's really interesting too when you show up that way. What I've noticed is women push back really hard sometimes on you. And it is
Oh,
really
yes.
interesting to watch. And sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, that felt like I was being attacked. And you're
And
like, no,
you will be
instead, that
by
was
very
just a mirror showing them what they were very uncomfortable with. Right. And you have to
yes.
remember that it wasn't about you, because when you do feel really good about leaving the room and then that happens, what they want is for you to go back to what they're comfortable with. And that is, I think, the
Exactly.
hardest thing as a leader and as an entrepreneur is to remember, like, this is my journey. This is a reflection of them.
And remember, when you're going into a room like that, you're a part of this organization. You're probably a part of a pecking order. I'm coming in here with my magical product that I made, and you're jealous of me, and you're having a difficult time with that. You have to remind yourself of that when you're in those presentations, and I do them a lot because when I go in to try to sell go into another firm that needs us to do their cases for them or that kind of thing. And you get especially somebody that's a few years older than you, God forbid, you could really get checked. And I try not to do that to women that are younger than me. I try not to do that. I try to be encouraging. I try to be elevating and uplifting. Unless they give me some tune, then we might talk a little bit. But I still try, even with that, to be elevating and encouraging and try to see, hey, I was there where you were at. And or I try to start from a point of, listen, you're 10 miles ahead of where I was at your age, but let's have a different kind of woman to woman than we were having in there, because that's not getting us anywhere. But at the end of the day, I think that it's a matter of just forgetting for 40 seconds anything other than just who you are on the inside, not even worrying about where it's like, am I a woman? Am I a man? Am I this? Or am I anything? What is my magic? Just what is my magic, with or without even any of those things that make up my identity? If you go with that first, and then the rest of it's just frosting, and I think it gets even easier to go in, and then you can't be victimized by anybody that's still in their little, or trying to hammer their square selves into whatever round hole that they're still trying to hammer themselves into. You don't have to worry about that, because you don't care. You're going to slide into whatever situation, or chameleon yourself into whatever situation you need to be in, because you're not so owned by whatever you think that image needs to be. And I found that to be a winning strategy for me in a lot of situations, because I am not one that fits into anybody that knows me. I don't fit in with anybody. So I really had to work, on how I was going to try not to, blow everybody out of just like, oh, this woman's out of her mind, so I could just try to keep some kind of an even keel to my presentation. And that's what I learned from it anyway. And I think with Amy, what I'm hearing from her and I'm really loving is this: you're you, and no matter what elements made that up of you, your mistakes, you don't regret, own your mistakes, and whatever that is, that's your recipe, that's your and I don't know if you guys do, but I collect these little crystals, you know, people look at, and if you look really close at them, there's all kinds of imperfections. And if you look back and you gaze into them, or you shine the light through them, that's what gives them their beauty. And some people that are into crystals say that's what gives them their magic. So it's the same thing with us. So what I'm gathering from Amy is that that's the whole piece of being genuine, is if you're not worried about, if you're not second guessing yourself and who this is in here, it's you're nobody else is going to second guess you. You go in there liking who this is, even if you're funny looking, even if you're, not like, we're pretty women. I think we are anyway. I mean, but how many times have you seen somebody come in at first? You're sitting in one of those corporate meetings and they hire this person that comes in and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm glad I don't look like that person. But as soon as they open their mouth and begin to present, you fall in love with them right away, because they've already mastered what Amy's talking about. They already love who they are. They don't care. They're ready to teach you, because you're going to like whatever corporate nonsense they're teaching you, because they're already in love with it. Because you're going to love it. And I think that's what she's talking to us about, if I'm not mistaken, which was going to be kind of one of my questions I was going to throw at you. So okay. I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like, because I start to see my triggers differently now. Like, my triggers are a gift for me, because I get to now be aware of them and now understand why. What was it that triggered me internally? I was actually just in a hot seat situation. I was like, I'll do it. If nobody else volunteers, I'll do it. No big deal. I can do, It was the worst experience I've had in a very long time. And it was a pure kind of attack where you're supposed to, in a hot seat, ask clarifying questions. No questions. It was just like, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? It was like, whoa, okay. And what I noticed is I started to get really defensive. And I could not get out of being defensive. And eventually I just stopped answering questions. I like very short clip questions. And I was like, I got out of there, went, what just happened? Like, why did I shut down? And I'm like, oh, okay, this triggered, and then I'm talking to a friend about it. And I was in this situation and I was like, I had earlier in that same meeting challenged their thinking. And so I think what I had done is kind of set up myself in a way but I did with clarifying questions like, hey, well, why did you choose this? Know what your reasoning behind this? But I won't apologize for that because that was what I was there to do, is to challenge some thinking so we can come up with bigger ideas. But I came out of there so angry that I had to go for a walk and like get rid of that. And what I learned from that meeting was, is I am done sitting in the room being a collective voice. My journey now needs to be in front of the room. I've been in the room for so long. This is my next elevation, and I'm irritated with myself and the process that it's taking me so long to get there. Like, hello, step up. And that was my knowledge and my nugget to myself. And I went, could have done it a little bit kinder, but I got the message, right? Like I figured it out. But it took
Sometimes
some
that's what we need.
patience,
Sometimes
right?
that's the invitation we need.
Yes. And if I went to sat and talked it through and going, why was I mad? And like, what happened here? It would have never came out as clearly.
That's like limbic system hijacking, right?
Yeah. And then my friends like,
And
unless you've been in that situation for a long time, that's your brain just was like
yeah,
safety.
yeah, safety
Yeah.
now.
So then I
And
had to give myself grace, right? And go, I'm okay with what happened. That is totally normal to react that way. And take what I can.
I think it's we, and I think that for myself, like I don't know how I'd feel about that secondary step of giving myself grace for getting really pissed or like just reacting, like whatever that is. I mean, the reality or perception, how whatever you want to, how you want to refer it. The reality is, whatever that situation is, I felt unsafe. There's something that made me feel unsafe. And so then when we go through this like secondary thing, oh, I had to give myself grace. What are we giving ourselves grace for?
It's more of like
Because
accepting it was okay to be mad. You know, like that was the grace of it. Like, hey, it can be just me being pissed off, like, and
yeah,
being
and
in
I yeah.
protection mode. Like,
Hmm.
because in the past, I would have judged myself
Yeah.
and gave myself shit about how, like, why couldn't you get it? Like, you're a coach. You should have been able to switch that situation up. Like, you should have been able to do this. And I'm like, no, no, I shut down. Like,
Well, think about
oh,
how, if you, I don't know if you guys know the story of Buddha, but where he became enlightened, he's sitting under the Bodhisattva tree, right? And he's thinking to himself, and he, I forget what they called them. There was like these spirits or whatever. They were shooting little arrows at him, the things that could bother you. Those are his triggers. And when he learned how to overcome, the whole idea with Buddhism is, to overcome suffering. What's one of the, tenets anyway, but those little arrows that are hitting him are his triggers, and he's learning to overcome that and to live with and be okay with, this is going to piss me off, this is going to upset me, this is going to make me sad. That's exactly the same concept that we're talking about right here. It's all right, and there are going to be days where our body chemistry is different. There's going to be days where things built up, or we had a sadness or a recent loss, or just the weather sucks, and that does affect us. It does have a, psychosomatic effect on us. And sometimes it's just like, you drove behind an idiot all, the whole way up the highway. And so it's okay to get upset, but it is okay, communicatively competent and spiritually mature, to also look at yourself and go, okay, but just like Amy did, what did I learn from that? What do I get from that? And how can I get a nugget from that to what kind of opportunity can I get from that to make myself a better person out of that situation, even if I'm going to be fine. Okay, I got mad and I had the right to be, but what can I learn from that as well? I think that's another great way of looking at it. My own self, I don't know, April's take.
yeah. And
Yeah,
sometimes it's the most random. Yeah.
I had a pissy pants moment this morning too. So I woke up and I was fine, and I was on social media, and I had posted on social media because both my husband and I both forgot our anniversary. Now, I always forget our anniversary. All right, I'm one. Okay, he never does. So I messaged him this morning, and I was like, I think we missed our anniversary. Blah blah blah. I think he realized it yesterday. I didn't realize it until today. In any case, I had posted on, about kind of the story of, how how kind of terrible I am in remembering the anniversary. I've had to come up like only a couple of years ago that I figured out a way to remember the actual day we were married because I always forgot. How I have to like go back in time to kind of actually, remember how long we've been together. It like all of these like mental gymnastics that I do to try to like how long have you been married, Rachel? In any case, so I'm already out there, and it was on Instagram, and I post my little stuff on the stories, no big deal. And then I go out to Facebook, and someone put, "Today is not recycling day. Today is the day we take out the garbage." Right? And it goes back to the BS that was at the rally. So my mother's side of the family, hails from Mexico. My son's father is Puerto Rican. So my son is, has Puerto Rican heritage. And I got ticked, like, because it was just petty. It was like high school, like, we're going to take out the garbage today. So I popped on and I said, ding, ding, with a whole bunch of like profanity, let's go to the ring. I said, and I explained kind of what I explained here. I said, if you have something to say, I am right here. Please slide into my comments and let me know exactly what you think about me. Right? Instead of, just copy and paste and doing all that thing. Now, all through that, I had an opportunity to post, to not post, but not even but. And while I'm doing that, I'm thinking to myself, am I low vibing this? Do I need to participate? And I was like, no, someone got in here and said that it was time to take out the garbage. And they're talking about me and they're talking about my son. And I know because, I get, people get confused because, I look like I'm part of the, the white folk people, but, we're all mixed. No one remembers, or no one knows everybody's heritage. And people forget who's in there. And you know what? No one slid into my comments, not even the people that were posting the nonsense. Why? Because, and I'm not saying they were scared. What I'm saying is it was like, I felt too like maybe they ignored it. Who knows? Maybe they don't care. But also, I can tell you this, no one was going to slide into the comments and go toe to toe back and forth with me. Right? And there's that too. And so when we're sitting here talking about getting upset and we're like trying to give ourselves grace over getting upset. No, I think there are times when it's legitimate to be upset.
Yep.
Oh, and I don't have to give myself grace for anything because someone woke up and decided to be really, really cruel.
Mhm.
Really cruel. So that was my moment today. And we all have them. And I will not apologize for that, not even a minute.
No, for me, it's just that when I get in those moments, I know for me, my body traps emotions. So I have to let the emotions out somewhere.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what I meant with grace. Like I have to get it out of me.
Yes.
Otherwise, it compiles.
Oh no, I understand that part too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anger, like I don't think like it's all of it, right? There's
Yes.
the moments we need to give ourselves grace. There's the moments when
Yeah.
our anger is legitimate.
Well, and we've
And
been
it's
told for so
and we
long
can
anger
stand
is
in
not
it.
okay for women. And that's crap.
Yeah.
So I'm
Right.
glad
Being
you
a
got mad.
strong woman is a bitch, or or if you do decide that you're going to lay down the line, and God knows that when I decide it's time, I'm not keeping my tongue in my pocket. But I'm not going to apologize for that either because nobody helped me build this. I mean, my husband's been a support and my family's been a support, but at the end of the day, and I did this. And I'm not going to sit there and have somebody step in and abuse when it gets to that point. I mean, I just bought, you want to call it loosely, call it bought, our employer from, we were all working, my company was loosely affiliated with our employer, my whole staff, and it wasn't going well because it was getting to be a dynamic. And so I basically told the individual who was gentleman, gonna have to part ways. And he wanted it to kind of be like me, strong man, you're woman. I'm gonna call the rules and the shots. And it's what he's used to. He's a lot older than I am. And reasonably successful. I don't care. I take care of my family. My family depends on the success of this firm. So everybody, the whole team followed me into the company, and I think that kind of burned his strishy a little bit. And there continued to be a dynamic, and he basically wanted to kind of use some intimidation, old school business, and I'm rich man, you're not, you're a woman, and so this is how it's going to go kind of talk.
Well, I
Yeah.
live in the land of Minnesota, so the passive aggressive nice, I despise it.
Yeah.
I despise it so ungodly much that I love actually talking to people on the East Coast. People are like, why? I'm like, because if they're mad, I know it. I love it. Like, it's fantastic. Like,
You're going to
I've
draw the
had
line
people
when it
where
needs to
like,
be
I haven't
drawn.
liked you for like 3 years. I'm like, for what? Like, I don't remember interacting with you. Like, like what's happening here? That idea of suppressing your anger and not letting people be able to give you the opportunity to work through it is a horrible thing. And so
It's
when I talk to
extremely
clients in the
unhealthy.
Midwest, I'm like, I'm going to deprogram the Midwest nice. And they're like, what? I go, what I want you to do is be kind, not nice.
There's a
Nice,
difference.
there's a big difference. I'm like, throw the freaking word of nice out the window, please. Because it doesn't support us anyway, because it's covering things up instead of just being like, wait, I see, I have a problem right now and I need to talk to you. And I learned that by working with New York clients, that directness. And it was such a great gift that I got. And I use it all the time now. And yeah, but yeah, the Midwest, nice. We should be in a family here.
I think that was the dynamic is that is this was a, Newark, New Jersey slash New York downtown dynamic, and me being in Cleveland, which is Midwest. And I think that that's what was expected, because I'd been nice to work with and I'd been a hard worker and I provided results. And despite the fact that I was observed in situations not being a wallflower, it's like, well, what made you think that I was going to be a wallflower with you when we parted ways business wise and you thought you were going to be a fart? So I think it's really, really, it's especially in situations like that. I can see a lot of women in the situation I'm in right now completely folding. It got a little rough, and I'm not losing. Is what I can tell you right now. I'm not the rich person in this dynamic, and it's about standing in, it's about holding your own. And it's about not apologizing, and it's about saying, well, this is how it's going to be, and I'm not going to bend just because you say who you are. Because I know going into a courtroom or going into any such, I've been in front of hundreds of judges and have been able to sell what I've needed to sell. I have all the confidence in the world of going in and looking like I need to look, and that's the good guy. So bring it on, and it's going the way I said it was going to go. And it has everything to do with getting rid of that hardwired apologetic thing, um, and getting rid of that nice kindness. I tried kindness, and kindness didn't work. So then you elevate
Yep.
to
Direct.
it being
Whatever.
direct and
Direct.
assertive. And then if that doesn't work, then you can go to your next levels from that point. But again, I think it's just, I think knowing your boundaries, knowing yourself, and being okay with the things that really, really upset you. You can have your things that just, all right,
Yep.
that's, like Rachel was talking about. I mean, many people might have taken what that person posted online 1,000 different ways. Rachel took it the way Rachel took it because of her background and how it affected her and her heart and her soul. And when you listen to what Rachel says, you're like, gosh, you don't think people, that makes sense how she's taking it. We see this stuff online and we scroll by it because, whatever, we're not thinking so much. It's like, you know, people are talking this nonsense political crap to somebody like her. It's completely unacceptable, and it's hurtful, and it's okay. That's perfectly okay. And that's where she draws her line. And I think it's healthy that she says, not okay, not apologizing, next subject. And it's healthy that she's able to say that. And I think that the fact that she's able to do that brings awareness to, you know, people, you know, like me. I'm thinking, you know, gosh, you know, if I would have seen that on, you know, I'm scrolling through X, like whatever, you know, I wouldn't have really put two and two together, even cared if somebody posted that. Now I'm like, gosh, you know, that's really unthinking.
Well, what I liked about what you did, Rachel, is how you said it.
Yes.
Like you didn't like attack back. You rose above that and you stated your truth
Yes.
and what you were feeling and how you seen the situation. You didn't attack the person. That I thought that's a brilliant move, and it's a hard move to do because you have to rise
That's
against.
why nobody would respond to you. That's
That
why
is
nobody
why
had the
nobody
kahunas
responded to you.
to respond to
It
you.
was
That's
brilliant.
exactly because they're like,
What can I do?
how do you answer that with anything other than an apology? If
Yeah.
somebody wanted to say that, you know, really, that would have been the only appropriate response to her comment.
Yeah.
So excellent job through anger.
Well, thank you.
Fantastic.
Right.
And, you know, kind of going like taking this another way too, in a completely different way. So like,
Yeah.
the one thing I've learned or I've seen too are people's inability to own when they actually did something wrong. And while, you know, we can do, I'm not apologizing for anything, right? Like standing, like there are times when we need to stand in our authority and our sovereignty and like, and embrace who we are as an expert in our field or whatever that is. There's that part. And then there's the times when like we mess up. And I did that over the weekend. Wow, it was like a whole thing. I was on all sides this whole week. And what happened was, so I had a client come in the week before. She was supposed to come in on Saturday morning. When she was walking out the door, I was scheduling her appointment. I must have not hit save. I must have not click the button. I don't know what it is, but someone slid in for like a big long facial and took up like 2 hours. I see a text at like 9:40, and she was like texting for her 9:30 appointment. She's like, I'm here. And I was like, I didn't have you on the schedule. Like, I've got someone on my table. Like, I'm about to do a facial. There's no sliding you in here for an eyebrow tint. I don't have another room. It's just me in my one room. I got like, so first of all, you got to get your brain right because I have to finish the service. Yeah. And I have to do it well. And I have to be there and be present for that client in my space. And I've got a whole thing with that. Right. And because it's more than just a facial. My place is a safe space where people come to be themselves and really just have a moment, really care for themselves more than me just putting stuff on their skin. Right. And so, but as soon as as soon as that client left, I called that other client and I was like, first I apologized, but what came out after was, what can I do to make it right? Like, what can I do to make this right? Because the apology doesn't mean anything. Yes, it was inconvenient, but like, do I need to throw money at this? Whether it's that person or anybody else, it's like, well, free service make this right. Like, what can make it right? Because it was still your time. She still got in her car. She drove to my place. She sat there. She waited for me, right? You know, and then I wasn't available. What can I do? Like, do you need a facial? Like, what? Like, I don't know what I can do, but I know that you are owed something because you honored your time by coming to see me, and I messed up. And it was an accident. It wasn't like it was malicious or anything on my side, but still. And I think that that's what that is missing too in this whole kind of like on the other side of that, when we mistreat people, or whether it's intentional or non-intentional, we still owe it. Well, we don't owe it. It's really, really kind, not nice, very kind to say, what can I do to make it right? listen, eat that humble pie, take a nice big bite of it, and
Yeah.
swallow it down, but make it right. Because I
Yeah.
could have said you didn't get a confirmation yesterday. Like, because at 24 hours ahead of time, they get like a confirmation or appointment reminder. It's like you didn't get the appointment reminder. What would have made you think that you had an appointment? Like, I could have totally, because we've had people come at us like that, right? I could have totally, like, that could have been one way, which I would never do. But still, yeah.
I
So,
think that's
anyway.
something that's really missing terribly from any of our service industries, period. I mean, and sometimes you'll see where the people will really come running if they mess something up, but a lot of times I just had, one of our lead generation providers just not handle things that we weren't happy with today at all. And it was a very young woman, and she just got, well, we just, and I'm like, you're not the only game in town. I got people killing themselves for my business. Are you kidding me right now? I'm like, I can replace you with somebody else if you like me to. I came to you because I've did business with you guys before. I didn't like the kid that had your job before you, and that's why I got rid of you. They fired him. You're new, and you're the new kid in town, and you came to me and said, give me a second chance, and this is how you're going to act. She was completely unapologetic, and she was extremely rude to my staff. Instead of not even worrying about whether we misunderstood something in the service agreement or that, it's just like you said, let's just everybody sit down and discuss, make sure everybody's using even the same terminology, because in that kind of work, it can be a conversion means something different to me than it means to you. Whatever, when I convert a lead and get the new case in and we send our retainers out and and I'm very worried about staying compliant with the law on my end, because I got two levels. I have to stay with the third party communications, and I have to stay compliant with what the VA and Social Security wants me to do. In other words, I got to be like little first communion veil. I got
Plus,
to
you
do
have to
it
be
right.
ADA, I imagine ADA compliant as well.
Absolutely, we do.
Yeah.
So in other
Yeah.
words, and there's always that client. It's the client that's the least disabled, even if they are, that's the loudest. But anyway, I was very upset by that. And the girl was just so rude. And I'm thinking to myself, and I'm not going to fire them because I know part of it's her immaturity, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to have to deal with this. But there's so much of well, you didn't get the confirmation,
It's a
or
deflection.
you didn't, when you went online, did you go to our website and yes, and I hit the purple button and I saw the swirly cue and a little ghosty guy that hops across the screen. I saw all of that. Yes, I did. I know I'm old, but I did see all that. It wasn't hallucinating, and they don't want to help you, and that's really a big loss to any of our service industry anymore, that we're not getting, the kind of treatment when I double book myself all the time because I'm so busy. And what do I got to do? I have to figure out a way to handle both of those clients, and thank goodness I got staff that can kind of help me out at the same time. But I double book myself all the time, not paying attention to the fact I have an Outlook calendar, ADHD and some other things going on there.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
but
as
at the end
people,
of the day, it's
you
it's
bring up a really
frustrating.
good point, April. I've been in marketing for 20 years. And one of my biggest pet peeves is getting fired because some other company threw us under the bus. And it's like, oh, it's their fault. I'm like, we didn't even do that. Like, like we weren't even a part of that. But in our industry, it's the easiest, fastest way to save face is to throw the other person who was handling the other piece under the bus. And I'm like, I won't do that. I just refuse. I'm like, oh, that was me. I totally did that. Like I
I'd
misunderstood
much rather hear that.
service. Yeah, I'm like,
Much
I
rather hear
misunderstood
that.
that. I really thought this was the software you were using. Apparently it's not. Like, okay, how do we let's put this into a system so we
It
don't do it
builds
again.
trust and rapport. to
Yes.
own, you know, because then I'm really going to believe you.
Yeah.
And, you know, and say, okay, well, gosh, that was our team and let's get this right. As opposed to think it must have been you, the customer, you know,
Yeah.
and you can't
Or the
even get
other
past that.
person.
The customer's always right thing. That has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
It's just, okay, it's something that we did.
I was going to say, sometimes it is the software, but if you're managing it, then who's at fault? I don't know. Like, exactly, right? You're like, it
If you're a good
glitched.
paying customer and you know you want to retain that business,
Yeah.
you
You
know, especially
apologize.
when there's so much competition in that particular area, that particular vertical that we purchase leads under, it's
Yeah.
like I don't know, I probably have 10 DMs right now in my LinkedIn alone with young people trying to get me to buy their warm
Yeah.
transfer calls just for the
Yeah.
SSDI vertical. That's not even getting into the Medicare or the VA.
Well,
You
and
know,
one of the things I learned early on in my career was when it wasn't my fault and they were really, really angry, apologizing sometimes actually made it like elevate more. And I was like, what I learned was, I am so sorry you feel that way. And I totally get it. I validate their feelings. And I'm like, because it's their feelings are real and whatever they're experiencing, whatever the outcome or the solution or whatever it is, it does not matter in
that
that
must be
moment.
so frustrating. Let me help you get to the bottom of that.
Exactly. And
Right.
that, and at least that diffuses it enough to have a conversation then. But if you can't diffuse the anger in the room, eventually it just doesn't work. And so I learned really quickly to acknowledge people's feelings and emotions where they are. And then sometimes I'm like, okay, I think we need a pause and we'll talk about this another time. We can
Being
think
okay with
clearly.
that, being okay
Yeah.
with sleeping on it, like you said before, being able to say, we're not going to make a final decision today on this, being okay with sleeping on it. Because if it's going to run away from you overnight, then it wasn't something good to make a decision on it right now. Because
Yeah.
it was going to fall off the cliff anyway.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then it's about communication and caring. Like ultimately, how would I want to be treated in this situation? That's how I lead. Um, and I'm always shocked that when I do get blamed or I get attacked, and I'm like, oh yeah, people still do this. Okay. And you have to react. How do you react? You have to like learn that, right? And
Well,
sometimes you have to be put in that
it
situation
catches
so
you
you can
off
remember.
guard. It catches you off guard because
Mhm.
like I think what we've all learned is one of the best ways to avoid that nonsense is to be constantly deliver a being able to consistently deliver a good service. We follow through. We're transparent from the beginning. We don't try. We are as authentic as we can be at any given moment. Like we just kind of put it all out there. And we stand behind our word, kind of like word is bond. We go through this whole thing. And so and that saves us from so much pain, heartache, headache, BS, nonsense, whatever all that is. And because we're comfortable, being authentically who we are while standing in our authority as an expert in what we're doing, again, it makes things so much easier. So when that happens and someone comes right up behind you, you're like, whoo, what was that? We're not ready for it because we've done so many years, decades, like all of this, not only professional growth, but personal growth to do everything to avoid that. Because we all learned, obviously, very early on that that is something we don't like, right? We have gone above and beyond to kind of protect ourselves from that. And then the audacity of some joker clown to come through and try to put that on us. Oh my gosh, man.
That reminds me of one of my favorite slogans. I always put myself when I'm feeling too comfortable, I put myself in something uncomfortable because that's the only way I can grow is to evolve as a human is to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And there are times where I'm like, why did I do this? I'm like, I remember why I did this, because this is how I didn't want to do this.
Yeah.
This panic inside me. I'm like,
Yes.
I was avoiding this
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I
The
chose
second that
to
I
go
notice
into
that for
it.
myself, the second I go off script, when I know, like when I go rogue off my own standard operating procedure, whatever that is, I decide like, oh, this time it'll be okay if I don't follow that. Oh, that is the time it comes and bites you right in the butt and you regret that decision. And then to your point, you remember, you're like, oh,
Yeah,
that was why.
that was fine.
Wow. I am the fly on the wall right now listening to this amazing conversation because I'm like, oh, yes, yes,
It
yes.
was a pleasure being on here talking to like-minded people, and sometimes you feel like you're on an island by yourself and you're the only one experiencing all of this, or you're having these challenges. So it's nice to have conversations with people who are like, I'm not alone. There are beautiful people out in the world that are trying to do the best they can, and they still get handed a surprise that they have to figure out. So it's a pleasure getting to know Rachel and April and having this wonderful, safe conversation with you.
So I am on a lot of different, in a lot of different spaces with so many women. And this right here, we're all talking about the same thing. We really are. Not struggle is the wrong word, but we are all trying to show up as authentically as we can in every space we show up on. And it's something that, at least for women in our age group, it is a true evolution of self. It's an evolution of self. It's an integration of self. It is like it is a whole thing. It's not this. I'm not trying it because I think sometimes it gets dismissed. Like life is a journey. I hate that so much, but yeah, it's a journey, and it gets really like whitewashed in this like we're all just walking down the path. No, it's like there's so much. We are constantly evolving who we are, but in our efforts to evolve or oh, the last one, that act of becoming, that so sometimes it's the act of becoming, but it's also the act of remembering who we're supposed to be, or recovering who we're supposed to be, or reminding ourselves of who we are in this world and
Mhm.
still being true to ourselves when we're showing up in spaces where we might not be wanted or we're being dismissed and all that other stuff. And then limbic system hijacking, someone coming from, around the corner, you're like, whoa. But we're all, I can tell you now, many of us are all going through the same thing.
Mhm.
We're all going through the same thing. And I think it's an amazing thing that we're all going through. But also I think it's important to remember that we're all doing the same thing. And maybe you might be a little, bristly, a little vulnerable because while we're trying to do this for ourselves, we're also like in this place of vulnerability too. And it goes back to that. You don't have to be nice to everybody you meet, but we need to be more conscientious of being kind to one another when we're out
Yeah.
and hold space. I know that phrase is getting overused, but hold space for everybody that we meet. But that level of presence and mindfulness, well, that gets exhausting too, right? Anyway, I'll end on that. It was wonderful talking to you guys.
I think it's really important that there are spaces like this. I think when Christy came up with this concept, I immediately fell in love with it because I thought, what a brilliant idea to bring together women that have, whether they have just come up with their own thing and put it out there or reinvented themselves from previous careers to come out and create something to put out there in the world to contribute and make the world a better place. And a lot of that came from some sort of internal personal evolving of some sort. And one thing that I come across in my work are women that part of their health issues, I mean, because body and mind go together, have a lot to do with just a morbid lack of self-esteem. And that is paralyzing, sometimes more than some of the most devastating diseases. I've seen it all, and I've written a legal argument about all of it. And one of the worst things I see for women 35 and over, because that's the age that it really hits, is this just deep depression of who am I, or or of failure, or of past traumas, as that's what it really comes to manifest and comes home to roost, is in early middle age. And you can either really, really flourish and become, your best self, or you can really go stagnant or go downhill. And I think it's important for women to see other everyday girls like ourselves, that have done special things, because yeah, we're special people. Everybody's special. Everybody's got something special, but we are women that have come from everyday backgrounds, that we've had different things happen in our past, whatever, good, bad, or indifferent, but we've been able to rise to a level to say, I've been able to do this. And there's a lot of people that that see my little thing online, and they know part of my journey, and I feel good that they look at me and say, well, April was able to overcome these things, and look at what she can do now. That means that anybody can do what they put their mind to, because I've been through some things in my life, and it was challenging for me to get to where I am here. I don't think I deserve a cookie for that, but at the end of the day, when people can tune into something like this and listen to we women getting vulnerable for a second, or sharing stories and laughing together in spite of ourselves, and saying, but we still can, that sends a message to women out there that they can. And I really love being a part of that. I really, really do. Because I think that if we can inspire one person, this endeavor has already succeeded, and I think that it's going to catch on. And I think a lot of people are going to define Christy's interviews and her health, wealth, and happiness, this whole exercise. I think they're going to find it to be really, really inspiring. And I think it's going to go places. And I love being a part of it. And it was great meeting you guys.
You three are just, I love you guys. Okay. Love you.
We love you too. This is a great talk.
Subscribe and click the link below to find out about bonus tracks and how to join our community.
Thank you for watching this episode of Inspiring Women, the women of health, wealth, and happiness, interviews to inspire. I hope you found something to feel inspired by today.